things first, I want to go over how this level has came to be, how I built it so quickly and efficiently. As I go to my sculpting tools, right, I can begin sculpting very easily different formations. And what's great is UEFN has a fantastic landscape tool already built in. If I want to modify anything that I'm seeing here, I can head to my paint tab. And what's fantastic is there are all these different painting layers that we can use and start painting even more detail onto our landscape. For example, if I have this first layer selected and I start painting, we can see as I zoom in here, right, we're getting a totally different texture that we could just continue to add various variation in our landscape. And I just think that is so cool, so fantastic. And I love the stylized effect and how it works in with all the grass that is built in to my landscape here. Now we're going to talk about all these trees that have been populated into my scene here. A lot of these trees actually are used by painting them once again in the foliage tool. So if I head here to my selection mode and I head to foliage, we can see I have populated some assets in order to paint them into my scene. I'm just going to showcase, right? It's exactly like an Unreal Engine where we can define the density. That's how much I'm going to be painting. So for example, if I enable this pine tree asset, and here I've set not only the density value, but right the range in which the scale of the asset should be. So I'm gonna, come over here and maybe do some set dressing. So right, I can begin painting in more trees and I can see that being updated into my scene. But if we move along here, we can see under this log here, oh, there is a little bunny Easter egg. And this is, once again, another device. And if you're wondering where I'm getting all these devices from, again, I'm going to my pardon me, my content browser. And here there is this devices folder. And there's so many you can choose from. The opportunities are endless for what you can build in terms of functionality in UEFN. But for me, in this particular experience, I wanted to be able to collect items. I love those platformer games where you're trying to find every single item possible. And what's cool is I can define what that collectible object is. So not only is there a bunny egg, but I can even say, hey, I want this to be a bowl of ramen or a watermelon egg. But in my case, I really love the bunny egg. I think it's really cute. Let's have some fun. Let's launch this session and actually play this game. So this is the fun part. All right, so check this out. We are now in my session. I am in the game. I'm going to collect this egg. And it's telling me egg is found. Great. I'm going to grab this egg. Amazing. I see Florian behind me. We're going to get into collaboration very shortly. And right, so there, I'm going to get this egg. And then I'm going to go in the mutator zone. And there you have it. I went through my whole entire session. And what's cool is after the game has ended, so Florian has actually joined me on my island here. So this is Fortnite Creative, where we can also edit our scene here directly in Fortnite, which is really cool. So we can see, right, Florian's gonna play something here. And this is gonna have an effect in my UEFN editor as well. So what I want to do here, I'm just going to hop out of this shortly. And right, we can see right in UEFN, all those changes that are being made in Fortnite Creative are live in UEFN as well.
So I'm going to create a device. I'm going to go to verse again. It's going to be a verse device. I'm going to call it I'm going to do something really simple just to count the eggs. So I'm going to call it egg counter device. And to show you how quick and simple it can be, I'm going to create it as an empty file. The word class just means we're defining an object, basically. And in this case, I'm not defining an object from scratch. Creative device. I am creating a class that would be basically a child of a creative device. And I'm not going to go into details right now. You see these red lines, meaning like the compiler for the verse compiler is complaining that I need to import some modules that provide some extra code. So now it's happy. And so if I just do that, nothing else, and we have now this creative devices folder that did not exist before and that contains my new object, my new creative device. So my code, like there was nothing in my code. I'm just writing the name of a class, that's it. And Fortnite already provides me with an object that I can place in the world that has this icon. One concept I would like you to take home with you is the concept of variables. So in this case, what I will want to do, I will want to be able to track how many eggs I have collected. So I'm going to create a name for a variable. And then in verse, so that's just the verse syntax here. I need to use the colon character and then give the type. What kind of data am I going to store here? So in this case, I want to store a whole number, which is an integer, int for short. And I'm going to initialize it with a value of 0. If I wanted instead to count, I don't know, the price of something, and I wanted to count like something that is worth 50 cents, like $0.5, it would not be happy because an integer is only for whole numbers. It cannot store numbers with decimal values like this. But there's a different type called float, which is made for that. And now if I go back and let's say I just say 5, some programming languages will let you do this, but here verse is like, okay, you're putting just 5, and 5 to me looks like a whole number. So I think you don't know what you're doing. That's basically what verse is telling me right now. But if I do 5.0, same value, but now it's accepted as a float type. So basically in programming, not just in verse, any data has a type. The computer needs to know it to know how to handle that data, what kind of operation it can perform, how much space it's going to take in memory, stuff like that. So right now, I still have a very, very simple device in which I have, so technically, it's actually not a variable, it's a constant. I will not be able to change its value. I can just initialize this thing called eggs with a value, but I cannot change it later. If I want to change it later, it needs to be a variable. And in verse, you need to add the keyword var in front of it. So now I will be able to change it later during the course of the program. And now if I add this keyword here, at editable, so it's complaining because it wants another module. And these two modules are the ones that you're probably going to use in all of your Fortnite devices. And sometimes you will need more than these two, but most of the time, these two will get you a long way. So what does this editable do? If I go to my device in UEFN, you can see I just have this device and it has very few parameters. If I update, if I compile my code, so I do build verse code here or Control-Shift-B, it will recompile this code. And now you can see it's updated, and now I can change in the editor the value of this variable. And the cool thing about it is that maybe there are some parameters of your game and you don't know yet what will make the game fun. You don't know yet if like some weapon should be really powerful or not that powerful. You don't know if you should collect 10 eggs or 20 eggs. So you can, if you work in a team and one person is good at programming and one person is more a game designer, you can have the programmer do the verse code and then expose some of the elements of the code so that the designer can change them very easily without having to open verse, which might be good news for people who are really scared of it. But my goal here is really to make you a little less scared of it so that you at least understand what you can do and cannot do with verse, whether you're going to be a verse programmer later or not. Knowing the basics is going to be very useful. So, so we have variables, which is an extremely foundational topic in programming. So that's a really important topic. And we have functions. So a function is basically, it can be called a method, procedure, a routine. There are many different names. And here we're going to use a function called onBegin, which actually is a function that that Fortnite will, when you start your game, when Fortnite loads the level to start the game, it will look at all the devices that exist in your level, and it will call a function called onBegin on each of these devices. So basically, this is your starting point when you start your game. So I'm adding some specifiers. You can ignore them for now. They will make sense later. And functions always have parentheses. And that's kind of how you can really quickly visually know that something is a variable. It's just a name, or something is a function. And also you will see these parentheses. And we need parentheses because sometimes we pass values, or we pass data, we pass arguments or parameters. These are all the same concept, just different names for it, which maybe you heard before. So you can pass parameters to a function, which you would list inside parentheses. Another specifier, which I will not explain right now. And then functions also have types, like variables. In this case, this function will not complete and return some value to us. It will just execute stuff. So it's type void. And I'm going to use a function that comes with verse called print, which, as the name implies, will just print a little text on the screen. And I'm gonna just write like hello. And so if I just write this, basically anything that is inside these quotes, this opening, double quote, opening and ending, this is just text. It can be, you can write anything you want. You don't have to follow a syntax. Whatever text is within the quotes will be shown on the screen. But then if I want to actually like show the value of my variable x, which is 5 at the moment, I can do that by using these curly braces. And inside of it, I can put some code. And this code will be executed or evaluated. And the value that is returned by it will be inserted here in this string of characters. The very powerful thing we can do here is I can also link my device to these collectible eggs that Tamara placed in the world. I'm gonna call it egg 1 because there are 3 of them. And I think the type is collectible device, or maybe item, I forgot. So if I look at, I'm gonna cheat, or not really cheat, just look at this collectible object. And if I look here at type, collectible object, so my guess is that it's collectible object device. So don't worry too much about this syntax right here. It will make sense later. And I guess.
Oh, there's an I in your
think it's the-
collectible.
Thank you.
My
Okay.
programmer brain, I'm like.
And so
Programming grammar police available at any point.
And I'm just, advanced programmers will think that it's not the most efficient way to do it, and I agree. But for right now, if I go back to the editor and compile, so look again at my device, and you see I still have this field called eggs, and now I build the code, and now we have all these new fields, egg 1, egg 2, egg 3, which are of type collectible object device. And so they will only let me choose objects in my level which are of this type. So it filters in a way. So I'm gonna assign all my collectible objects. So here the next step would be to use these events which are part of the collectible objects. So if I go back to these objects, these collectible objects, as Tamara showed us earlier, we have this function and these events. So anytime one of these collectible objects will be picked up by the player, it will send an event called onCollected. And what I can do in the verse code is detect when this event is triggered and then respond to it by calling a function that I make myself in verse to do something. So in this case, what I would do is simply, anytime a collectible object is picked up, I would just update the number of eggs that I've collected and print the result on the screen, for instance. So we'll go more into details and a lot more in the course.